that will help us, when you get on the list, that helps us prepare better to let the medicine seekers and gatherers know that there's this need here at the other end. So come down to Mercy from noon to 6, Monday through Friday, to get on the list, to get your excess medicine here Wednesday nights at 1745 Capitol Street Northeast. Zip code is 97301, by the way. Yes.
The microphone was off at the beginning, now it's working.
Oh, marvelous. Well, then they weren't hearing a whole lot there, probably.
Well, you always have important information, Craig.
Yeah.
And especially getting it over the internet.
Folks can also tune in to our Mercy monthly meeting, and let us not forget the ever popular My Garden, PeKe's My Garden. I will look up the schedules here in just a moment for folks. Because it's as simple as going to mercycenters.org/TV and looking up the schedules for the various TV programs, which is maintained at their website, which is going to load here soon. Zipping over to Mercy TV, let's see. Where's the schedules? We have a link to the schedules off the off the web page there. You just need to go to learn more. My Garden, okay. Okay, no listings available at this time. Come back in a few days. Come on, baby. Back to Mercy Monthly is shown on Wednesdays at 6:30, Thursdays at 7 p.m., Fridays at 10:30 p.m., and then the cycle repeats itself Wednesday 6:30 p.m. So 3 days a week you can catch your Mercy Monthly show on CCTV. Also, our Wednesday show, folks are able to see that. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesdays. That's Friday at 11:30 p.m., Saturdays at 10 p.m., Sundays at 11 p.m., and Tuesdays at 10 p.m. You can catch your Mercy weekly meeting shows. So spread the word, let everybody know. There's also other cannabis shows in the CCTV
library.
They're showing. So folks should go up and just do a keyword search for medical marijuana there and see what they find, or cannabis in general. Some news and information. This here is particularly relevant to Senate Bill 281, which is to add PTSD to the Oregon medical marijuana program. Israel sues terrorist trauma with marijuana. Israel has started a program for soldiers traumatized by battle with the Palestinians. A new unconventional weapon to exercise their nightmares, marijuana. Under an experimental program, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, the active ingredient found in the cannabis plant, will be administered to 15 soldiers over the next several months. This is actually a story from 2004. Currently, Israel has a medical marijuana program, and there's about 10,000 of their citizens currently registered with it. And PTSD is one of their qualifying conditions. Thank heavens they have common sense. Because otherwise, veterans are being given deadly cocktails to treat their PTSD. For example, Sergeant Eric Lane. His death was not pretty. A few months after starting a drug regimen combining the antidepressant Paxil, the mood stabilizer Klonopin, and a controversial antipsychotic drug manufactured by pharmaceutical giant AstraZeneca, known as Seroquel, the Iraq war veteran was suffering from all kinds of stuff and ended up dying from it. And then there's PTSD and cannabis. A clinician ponders mechanism of action, where he talks about one often intractable problem for which cannabis proves relief is a post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. He has more than 100 patients with PTSD. Among those reporting that cannabis alleviates their PTSD symptoms are veterans of the war in Vietnam, the first Gulf War, and the current occupation of Iraq. So more on that can be found at our website. Where also you could see study, vaporized low potency cannabis reduces problematic nerve pain. Amid record levels of overdose rates for prescription pain, a study that finds that marijuana reduces neuropathic pain. The administration, again, of vaporized low THC cannabis is associated with reduced pain in subjects with neuropathy, according to clinical trial data published online by the Journal of Pain. Investigators at the University of California Davis Medical Center conducted a double-blind, placebo or controlled crossover study evaluating the analgesic efficacy of vaporized cannabis in 39 subjects, the majority of whom were experiencing neuropathic pain despite traditional treatment. Subjects inhaled cannabis of either moderate THC at 3.53% or low-dose THC of 1.29%, or zero THC, which was the placebo. Subjects continued to take all other current medications as per their normal routine during the 3 to 4 week study period. Spontaneous pain relief, the primary outcome variable, was assessed by asking participants to indicate the intensity of their current pain on a 100 millimeter visual analog scale between 0, no pain, and 100, the worst possible pain. Researchers reported that both the low and medium doses proved to be salutary analgesics for the heterogeneous collection of neuropathic pain conditions studied. Both active study medications provided statistically significant 30% reductions in pain intensity when compared to placebo. So, there's good news for folks who suffer from that particular kind of pain. We've given to understand that folks with diabetes, folks who go through a dialysis process, just to give you a few examples, fibromyalgia, also Parkinson's, these are things that have whole body pain and other effects, and cannabis is proving to be effective for these conditions and their symptoms. Americans for Safe Access, or ASA, is appealing a DC court ruling on rescheduling. A 2-to-1 DC appeals court says that the DEA can choose what counts as a valid scientific study in rejecting a petition to reclassify cannabis as having medical use. The case of Americans for Safe Access versus Drug Enforcement Administration now goes before 9 judges of the DC Appeals Court for inbound review. ASA's appeal cited more than 200 peer-reviewed scientific articles by renowned researchers that demonstrate that cannabis is a safe and effective medicine for treating pain, nausea, and a host of other serious medical conditions. The government argued that published peer-reviewed articles, the gold standard for medical research, do not qualify as, quote, adequate and well-controlled studies, unquote, because the DEA was not able to evaluate the raw data that supports the scientists' findings. The court ruled that it was compelled by precedent to defer to the DEA's definitions and administrative process, regardless of any other evidence. The Obama administration is making a joke of scientific integrity at the expense of patients and doctors, said ASA Chief Counsel Joe Efrod, who argued the case. They dismiss existing studies as insufficient while steadfastly blocking human clinical trials that can confirm what doctors have known for centuries and tens of thousands of patients experience every day. Cannabis is medicine. If the en-banc review by the DC Circuit does not force the DEA to apply the same standards to evaluating cannabis as it does other drugs, ASA intends to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. The case hinges on the DEA's denial of a rescheduling petition filed in 2002 by the Coalition for Rescheduling Cannabis, which includes several individuals as well as several organizations, among them ASA, Americans for Safe Access. The denial finally came in 2011 after ASA sued the government for an unreasonable delay. Stay tuned. We will definitely keep you all posted on that. That's definitely a big item. It's affecting everybody, and we'll certainly follow up on it, especially to let Joe and Jane Citizen know what they can do about this particular issue, or sub-issue, I guess. The California Supreme Court affirms dispensaries are legal under state law. The California Supreme Court in January affirmed that storefront medical cannabis dispensaries may operate lawfully in the state. The court denied review of a unanimous ruling from the 4th District Court of Appeals in the case of People v. Jackson, which reversed the conviction of former San Diego dispensary operator Jovan Jackson. The appeal, which was argued by ASA, established a clear state law defense for Jackson and other medical cannabis providers in California. The state Supreme Court affirmed the appellate ruling despite requests to republish it from the League of California Cities and an amicus brief asking for review of the case from the Los Angeles City Attorney and District Attorneys in Los Angeles, Sacramento, and Sonoma. The court has settled the question of the legality of medical cannabis sales and distribution in the state to the benefit of tens of thousands of patients, said Joe Elford, Chief Counsel with Americans for Safe Access, who represented Jackson in his appeal. Even though the appellate court decision garnered significant opposition, patients have prevailed in their struggle to protect safe access to medical marijuana. Jackson was convicted in September 2010 after a San Diego Superior Court refused to allow him to present evidence he was in compliance with state law. With this appellate decision, Jackson and other California dispensary operators can no longer be denied a defense in state court. Specifically, the appellate ruling held that at trial, Jackson was only required to produce evidence which would create a reasonable doubt as to whether the defense provided by the Medical Marijuana Program Act had been established. The court ruled that the members of a collective were not required to perform physical labor and can participate lawfully by way of cash contributions. Jackson's storefront collective was raided by local law enforcement in 2008. Jackson was tried and acquitted of marijuana possession and sales in 2009. Jackson was raided again in 2009, and District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis tried Jackson again on the same charges. What happened to double jeopardy? At his second trial, Jackson was denied a defense by San Diego Superior Court Judge Howard Shore, who referred to medical cannabis as dope. and called California's medical cannabis laws a scam. Jackson was sentenced to 180 days in jail, but that sentence was later vacated. So more on those as we find out. Stories like ASA and Herbal Medicine Group take action on cannabis product safety. National Trade Group issued guidelines on cannabis product safety to dispensary regulators across the country in January. The recommendations on best practices for cannabis cultivation and distribution, as well as packaging cannabis products, result from a year of collaboration between ASA and the American Herbal Products Association, or APA. The National Trade Association focused on herbs and botanicals and herbal products. APA sent the recommendation to state officials who regulate medical cannabis distribution in California, Colorado, Massachusetts, and elsewhere. The APA Cannabis Committee includes in its charter a responsibility to develop policy recommendations that support safe use of products derived from cannabis species, said APA President Michael McGuffin. This initial work should be well received by state regulators who share our commitment to ensuring safe access to medical marijuana for their citizens. Founded in 1982, APA has more than 340 industry members and is the oldest nonprofit organization serving the herbal products industry. The APA Cannabis Committee was established in 2010 to address issues related to a safe use and responsible commerce of legally marketed products derived from the cannabis species. State regulators recognize that health and safety rules for cannabis cultivation and distribution help patients, said ASA Executive Director Steph Shear. The decades of experience APA has in overseeing the safety of herbal products make them a great partner for establishing cannabis as a botanical medicine. Many states have established effective regulations for distribution that protect businesses and residents in their communities, but none have adopted product protocols and safety standards. The APA Cannabis Committee began collaborating with ASA last year to gain feedback from medical cannabis producers, distributors, and laboratories in California, Colorado, Maine, New Mexico, and Washington State. Arizona court rules California patient gets seized cannabis back. In January, an Arizona court ordered police to return cannabis seized from a California patient visiting the state. In ordering the return of property, the court rejected the state of Arizona's claim that federal law preempts state law and prevents police from giving back seized cannabis. As California and Oregon courts have done, the Arizona court found that the immunity provision of federal law protects state and local police who lawfully administer state laws relating to controlled substances. Since the patient whose cannabis was seized is a qualified patient, Arizona law enforcement must comply with state law that mandates the return of cannabis that is lawfully possessed. The case involved Valerie Okun, a California patient who was stopped at a border patrol checkpoint and had her medical cannabis seized. Because Arizona law includes protections for patients from other states, in other words, Arizona does have reciprocity, the charges were dropped, so Okun asked for her cannabis back, but law enforcement refused, citing federal law. This was a common law enforcement strategy in California as well, if not to say Oregon has had its share of cases, until 2007 when the Court of Appeals resolved the issue in favor of patients in a case litigated by Americans for Safe Access, specifically Garden Grove v. Superior Court. Montana provider gets reduced federal sentence. Montana medical cannabis provider Chris Williams received a 5-year sentence at the beginning of February after federal prosecutors took the rare step of offering a post-conviction plea deal. Williams was one of many charged after dozens of federal raids in 2011, but the only one to go to trial. He faced a minimum of more than 80 years in federal prison after being convicted of multiple counts. Also, Representatives Earl Blumenauer and Sam Farr have introduced legislation that will end the federal conflict with state medical cannabis programs. Blumenauer's bill, titled the State's Medical Marijuana Patient Protection Act, will move cannabis out of Schedule I of the Controlled Substances Act and allow for medical research to be controlled by an agency other than the National Institute of Drug Abuse. This is also known as H.R. 689. Farr's bill, the Truth in Trials Act, or H.R. 710, will allow patients, caregivers, and providers who are in compliance with state law to offer evidence of the medical necessity for their use of cannabis. Contact your member of Congress and urge them to vote for H.R. 689 and H.R. 710. Visit our website, mercycenters.org, to find out more about how you can contact your representative. You can also find out who your representative is. Give them a phone call, send them an email, maybe even make a visit.
I did.
It's fun. It's easy.
And mine is Thatcher and George. Or George and Thatcher.
Well, this is certainly interesting.
And what is that, Perry?
Members of Congress introduced measures to legalize marijuana, regulate sales. Members of the United States Congress, that's the federal level, introduced legislation this week to permit the regulated production and retail sales of cannabis to adults in states that have legalized its consumption. The Ending Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2013, sponsored by Representative Jared Polis of Colorado, removes cannabis from the control of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration and authorizes the United States Department of Treasury to license state-authorized retail marijuana producers and distributors. This legislation doesn't force any state to legalize marijuana, Representative Polis said, but Colorado and the 18 other jurisdictions that have chosen to allow marijuana for medical or recreational use deserve the certainty of knowing that federal agents won't raid state legal businesses. Congress should simply allow states to regulate marijuana as they see fit and stop wasting federal tax dollars on the failed drug war.
Yay!
So what this is going to do is to reinforce states that have chosen to legalize cannabis for their adult citizens, as Washington State and Colorado have done. In addition, there is the Marijuana Tax Equity Act, introduced by Representative Earl Blumenauer of Oregon, which imposes an excise tax on the first sale of marijuana in a manner similar to the taxes that are presently imposed for the commercial production and sale of alcohol and tobacco. Stated Representative Blumenauer, "We are in the process of a dramatic shift in the marijuana policy landscape. Public attitude, state law, and established practices are all creating irreconcilable difficulties for the public officials at every level of government. We want the federal government to be a responsible partner with the rest of the universe of marijuana interests while we address what federal policy should be regarding drug taxation, classification, and legality." Normal Communications Director Eric Altieri praised the bill's introduction. When residents of Colorado and Washington voted to end their state's prohibition on marijuana last November, it was a watershed moment for our nation's move towards sane marijuana laws, he said. But there remains a lingering conflict between state and federal law. These historic measures seek to resolve this conflict and empower states to dictate their own marijuana policies without fear of federal incursion. Normal would like to thank the congressman for taking this brave step forward and encourages their colleagues in Congress to join them in calling for sensible marijuana law reform. Representatives Blumenauer and Polis also issued a report on Tuesday outlining the need for federal marijuana law reform. The report, entitled A Path Forward, Rethinking Federal Marijuana Policy, states, "It is time for Congress to allow states and voters to decide how they want to treat marijuana. The current system is broken. It wastes resources and destroys individual lives, in turn damaging families and entire communities. It is past time to take action and stop this tragic waste in the future." The report concludes, while individual states remain laboratories of innovation, it is time for the federal government to make sure that states, businesses, and individuals are able to act in an environment that has coherent and consistent laws. Congress should pursue each of the following options: tax and regulate marijuana, allow states to enact existing medical marijuana laws without federal interference, remove the ban on industrial hemp, allow the marijuana industry to operate in a normal business environment. According to a December 2012 public policy telephone survey of U.S. voters, 58% of Americans believe that marijuana should be legal. Only 34% of respondents oppose the notion of legalizing cannabis. Wow, 58%. We're up to 58% now. That's tremendous. A new poll conducted by Princeton Survey Research Associates International and released last week reports that 53% of Americans believe that the government should treat marijuana the same as alcohol, while over 70% of respondents say that the federal government should butt out of the affairs of the states that have legalized the plant. So 70% of citizens are for the basic principle of the Ending Marijuana Prohibition Act and the Marijuana Tax Equity Act, which states that jurisdictions or states or even territories like, say, D.C., who vote to have a change in the cannabis laws, period, deserve to have those rights respected, their states' rights, and this is going to codify that, and so we should all jump on these particular bandwagons here. Unfortunately, it's not all good news. Michigan court rules that the cannabis dispensaries are not permitted under state's Medical Marijuana Act. So those folks are going to have some troubles. Another study, this one says that oral THC administration mitigates sleep apnea. The oral administration of a synthetic THC reduces symptoms of sleep apnea, according to clinical trial data published online in the scientific journal Frontiers in Psychiatry. Sleep apnea is a medical disorder characterized by frequent interruptions in breathing of up to 10 seconds or more during sleep. The condition is associated with numerous physiological disorders, including fatigue, headaches, high blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, heart attack, and stroke. Investigators at the University of Illinois at Chicago Department of Medicine assessed the safety, tolerability, and efficacy of dronabinol, an oral THC introduced into sesame seed oil, in 17 subjects with obstructive sleep apnea. Oral THC administration was associated with a significant change in apnea hypopnea index over a 21-day period. Authors further determined dronabinol treatment to be safe and well tolerated. They concluded these findings should be confirmed in a larger study in order to identify subpopulations with OSA that may benefit from cannabinoid pharmacologic therapy. Dronabinol, marketed under the trade name Marinol, is an FDA-approved to treat currently FDA approved to treat nausea and vomiting caused by chemotherapy. Oh, hey, more good news. Industrial hemp farming legislation reintroduced in Congress. United States Representative Thomas Massey, Republican, Kentucky, and 28 co-sponsors, including House Agricultural Committee Ranking Member Representative Colin Peterson of Minnesota, have reintroduced legislation in Congress that requires the federal government to respect states' laws allowing for the cultivation of industrial hemp. Hemp is a distinct variety of the plant species Cannabis sativa that contains only trace, that is, less than 1%, of the amount of tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, the primary psychoactive compound in cannabis. House Bill 525, the Industrial Hemp Farming Act of 2013, amends the Federal Controlled Substances Act to exclude industrial hemp from the definition of marijuana. The measure grants state legislatures the authority to license and regulate the commercial production of hemp as an industrial and agricultural commodity. 8 states currently, Colorado, Maine, Montana, North Dakota, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, and West Virginia, have enacted statutory changes defining industrial hemp as a distinct agricultural product and allowing for its regulated commercial production. Passage of H.R. 525 would remove existing federal barriers and would permit these states and others to authorize the authority to do so without coming afoul of federal anti-drug laws. That's right, because even though we've had a law here in Oregon permitting industrial hemp, it hasn't been enacted. It hasn't been actually applied. No one has tried to take advantage of it out of fear of federal involvement. And this bill, this House Resolution 525, would take care of that. Industrial hemp is a sustainable crop and would be a great economic opportunity for Kentucky farmers, said Representative Massey in a press release. Industrial hemp will give small farmers another opportunity to succeed, said Senator Rand Paul, also of Kentucky, and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, also of Kentucky, which are supporting the introduction of a companion bill in the U.S. Senate. According to a Congressional Research Service report, the United States is the only developed nation in which industrial hemp is not an established crop. Previous versions of the Industrial Hemp Farming Act have stalled in Congress. The issue has never before been debated in the Senate. Yeah, we have a question.
Didn't our forefathers have to have on their plantation a third of their crop? Yeah?
Yeah, particularly during the war, hemp was encouraged. In fact, they had to allocate a certain part of their farming to it during times of crises. And again, during the 1940s, the United States government put forth a program to grow hemp, hemp for victory, in fact, it was referred to. So hemp is very much an American thing and should be brought back, especially during this time of economic need. Yeah.
Didn't Ben Franklin wear hemp clothing when he went to Europe? And they were all pretty amazing.
I believe so. Hemp clothing was probably readily available. It was the first American flag was, I believe, made out of hemp substantially, for example. And it's quite possible, I can't say for a fact, that we have his suit that he wore and it's made out of hemp, but it's very likely. We certainly know that Washington grew it. Thomas Jefferson, pretty much all the founding fathers who had agricultural interest, who had any farming land, grew hemp. Many times, not just because they were required to for their patriotic duty, but for the substantial benefits that you get from it. There's even a notation in George Washington's journal concerning his hemp fields where he wanted to separate the females from the rest of his from the rest of the crop, from the rest of the plants. And there's a lot of speculation as generally the only reason for isolating your females and increasing the potency of an all-female plant so it has no seeds in it, in other words making it sensimillion, is to increase the medical properties of it, particularly the analgesics for pain that folks suffer there. So there's some speculation that George Washington grew medical marijuana. It is under much debate. We have just that one entrance, that one reference to it in his journals. But we can say for a fact that he did grow hemp. That medical cannabis was in wide use, particularly in Europe, Asia, Africa at the time. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. There were documents, to be sure, available in the American colonies concerning medical cannabis, and would have been readily available to old George there. More good news, well, for the Czech people. The Czech Republic, President Václav Klaus signed legislation into law last week, which was in February, legalizing the use of cannabis for therapeutic purposes. Under the new law, patients with a physician's authorization will be able to access cannabis from pharmacies. Initially, cannabis will be imported into the country. Too bad Oregon's not on the list to sell them some. However, the law also allows for the eventual domestic production of cannabis for medical purposes by state licensed producers. Individual patients will not be allowed to cultivate their own cannabis under the Czech Republic medical cannabis law. Canada, Israel, and the Netherlands also allow for the state licensed production of medical marijuana for qualified patients. For more information, please contact Alan St. Pierre, Normal Executive Director. You can visit our website, mercycenters.org, for more information. You can also visit our webpage set up for on the Czech Republic there to get more information there. Folks are probably curious about some of the bills that you may have heard about in the news concerning cannabis law reform as it's happening, especially here in Oregon. We want to remind folks once again about especially Senate Bill 281, which is to add post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, to the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program, also referred to as the OMMP. So folks need to contact a representative and tell them to vote yes on this bill each and every opportunity they have. This is a thing where we need you to contact your representative now, get them to vote on it, and then come next November when they come up for re-election, you vote accordingly on those folks there. This is not something that, this bill is not something that we are able to vote on, but we need to contact our representatives, get them to vote on it in this case. And that's SB Senate Bill 281, to add PTSD to the OMMP. Okay, so this one is Senate Bill 3711, which is to legalize cannabis in Oregon. I do not have the gory details here, but we'll hunt them down and get them to you, folks. I don't have a lot of information on that right now. Phil Barnhart, chair of the House Committee on Revenue, has introduced 3371. Thank you, that's the right number there. Okay, here we have a little more information. House Bill 3371, which has been introduced in the Oregon State Legislature, measure introduced provides for regulation of production, processing, and sale of marijuana and marijuana-infused products. Directs Oregon Health Authority to license marijuana producers, marijuana processors, marijuana wholesalers, and marijuana retailers. Provides for taxation of marijuana production. Directs Oregon Liquor Control Commission to oversee taxation of marijuana, provides for distribution of monies collected as tax, punishes violations of Act by $1,000 fine, punishes certain other offenses by $650 fine, limits applicability of crimes in the state relating to manufacturing, distributing, or possessing marijuana to person under 21 years of age, or delivery of marijuana to person who delivers marijuana to person 21 years of age. Becomes operative July 1st, 2014 if you contact your representatives and get them to vote yes on House Bill 3371. Here's some notes on it. The bill doesn't set up a state monopoly. It just maintains that you must be licensed and regulated by the state. There is a non-refundable $250 application fee and a $1,000 yearly licensing fee proposed. There's a separate fee to be a grower or a retailer. So that's on that one there. There's also House Bill 2919. Okay, House Bill 2919 is a vehicle for safe access and a research bill. There's certain to be a lot of amendments made during the session before it goes to a floor vote. And then we'll either like it, tolerate it, or want to kill it. So let's take apart and constructively improving it. Big question on the mind is why limit the protection of licensees to affirmative defense instead of accepting them from criminal penalties? As far as I know, with only affirmative defense protection, you can still be raided, arrested, and prosecuted until you have the chance to assert affirmative defense at your trial. So, we'll have to keep a watch on that one, apparently. As I said, there's also Senate Bill 281 to add PTSD to the OMP. We have House Bill 2919. It's a medical cannabis dispensary. We also have 3371, which is legalization, thereby making it medical for everybody. Oh, there's also 2409, which is restructuring sentencing guidelines for possession of marijuana and adding preschools to the list. Oh, House Bill 2409 which adds preschool to the list of schools that within 1,000 feet. House Bill 2204 restructures sentencing guidelines. Is it a good way or a bad way? Okay, we'll have to pay attention to it. House Bill 2204 is complicated, and we'll have to have people get into the nitty-gritty and talked about with some of the intent with the people who put it forward. Some of the changes in the bill, House Bill 2204, are also part of the bill submitted by the Commission on Public Safety, that is House Bill 3194 and 5. House Bill 2409, which is adding preschools to the list of schools that can't be within 1,000 feet of a grow, should be opposed. It's happening in House Judiciary Hearing Room 343 at 1 p.m. It doesn't say.
Did you mention the OMMP meeting this Monday?
The next meeting of the Advisory Committee on Medical Marijuana, which happens quarterly, is happening March 11th at 10:30 or 10 o'clock to 2:30, and it is happening at 635 Capitol Street in the Agriculture Building in Large Hearing Room, Salem, Oregon 97301. And that's the Advisory Committee on Medical Marijuana, or the ACMM's quarterly meeting. And it will be going, it's happening on Monday, March 11th from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. We'll be doing our best to live stream it as well as capture it on video through our CCTV equipment.
Well, we're coming up to less than a couple minutes there, bud.
Alrighty. Just enough time to let folks know about the 420 is happening on Saturday this year. Normally we gather at the steps of the Capitol in Salem, Oregon. We pass we have some signage, do a little mini demonstration, hand out literature to anybody who happens to be there, particularly newsletters. Do what we can to educate folks that the war is still going on and what they can do about it. So join us on 420 at 420 on Saturday at the steps of the Capitol building for cannabis law reform demonstration and rallying. At the same time, we'll also be handing out information on the Million Marijuana Marches. Happens Saturday, May 4th, high noon. We'll be gathering at Summer and Center Streets as usual, and going from there. The Million Marijuana Marches, or Global Marijuana Marches, is a worldwide event. It is also happening in Eugene, Portland, Medford, and about 250 cities around the world. Stay tuned for the next Mercy's annual Wake and Bake. We'll hopefully have a date set on it soon. Then in July 19th through the 21st, the Emerald Empire Hempfest is happening in Eugene. And then July 28th, the Merciful Ultimate Louisiana Party happening in Scio at the Bear Creek Saloon. Of course, this is all just prepping us for the Seattle Hempfest in August. Then August 23rd, 24th, Henry Turner Jr. will be appearing at Papa G's Black Light Lounge on Marion Street in Salem. Later on in August, 23rd, 25th, Jefferson State Music Festival and Hemp Expo. More events can be seen at mercycenters.org. This has been the Mercy Weekly Meeting. It happens every Wednesday here at 1745 Capitol Street, Northeast. It goes from 7 to 9, and here you can find out how to get your card, where to find medicine now, how to get growing yourself or to find a grower, best methods of medicating, changes, and more concerning the medical cannabis program here in Oregon, across America, and around the world. Thanks, and again, visit mercycenters.org or give us a call at 503-363-4588 or stop by the Mercy Center. We're open Monday through Friday, noon to 6. Thanks to CCTV, producer PeKe. This has been the Mercy Weekly Meeting. Take care.
Thank you. Have a
And
good
so
day.
long, folks out there in virtual land. I don't want you to feel neglected or anything. Was anybody actually watching? No. Doesn't look like it. But hey, who knows? We record it anyway for posterity.
You want to say anything before I turn it off, Glenn?
Yes, good night.
Good night. God bless you all, every single one of you.